G'day and welcome back for part 2. We are going to continue following the old tank stream, the hidden river. This once pristine stream is now just a buried pipe and a tunnel made by convicts running deep under the modern streets and buildings. Now, if you haven't seen the first part yet, that is alright, but it would be nice if you gave it a squiz. Here is a quick recap of where we have been. We started at Circular Quay, checking out the ferries and the Opera House. We moved towards the city, found the Herald Monument, and talked about that old ship buried under a pub. We found a great food alley, the Underwood Arc, and talked about Sydney's first environmental disaster. Then we hit George Street to see the 1900s version of Amazon. We walked down Bridge Street to see where the first bridge in Australia is still hiding. Found an amazing cafe called Marlowe's Way and ended up near Spring Street. That is where we heard the story of the first environmental protection order and how the tank stream actually got its name. Now, just across the road there, check out that massive stack of silver cubes. That is the Dobell Memorial Sculpture. Locals sometimes call it the steel shish kebab, which is a bit of a classic Sydney nickname. It was put here to honour the famous painter William Dobell. It's been standing at this corner since 1999, and if you look closely at the mirrored surfaces, you can see the whole city reflecting back at you. It is a bit like a hall of mirrors right in the middle of the CBD. It is hard to believe today, but before the concrete took over, this was a heavily wooded forest. The tank stream wasn't a tunnel back then. It was a sparkling run of fresh water that dropped 30 metres through the valley. It started up at a marshy swamp near where Hyde Park is now, flowing through mosses and ferns over small waterfalls until it hit the harbour. Captain Phillip thought he'd found a year-round river like the ones back in Britain, but he soon learned about the fickle Aussie seasons. The environmental disaster didn't take long. Within just 20 years, we'd cleared the trees and let the topsoil wash away. By the 1820s, the creek was a toxic mess of slaughterhouse waste and human filth. It had gone from the colony's lifeblood to a source of disease. If things had gone differently, we might be walking along a central canal today with parks and clear water. Instead, we just put a lid on it and pretended it wasn't there. But the water is still down there, trickling through the dark. Now, one of the things I absolutely love about Sydney is spotting all these movie locations. If this corner looks a bit familiar, it's because we are standing right in the middle of the Matrix back in 1998. The Wachowskis basically turned the Sydney CBD into a giant film set. On Hunter Street is where Neo gets out of the car in the pouring rain to meet Trinity for the first time. And if you look toward the buildings, you can practically see where they filmed those massive office block scenes. The designers love Sydney because the architecture is so grand, but it has this slightly clinical, anonymous feel that was perfect for a computer-generated world. It is a bit of a trip, isn't it? Under our feet is a 200-year-old convict tunnel, and all around us is the backdrop for one of the biggest sci-fi movies in history. Sydney really is a city of layers, and half of them are hidden right in plain sight. We call this the Tank Stream, but that is a name we gave it. The Gadigal people lived along this water for thousands of years, but when the colony took over, the original name was lost. It was forgotten. Nobody remembered what this stream was actually called. This is from the information I have. If anyone has heard this is wrong, please make a comment in the comments. And if you have any information to share, please, I would love to hear it. Also, can you guys hit the like button? It really helps me know that you guys are enjoying these walks. So we have turned off Pitt Street, and this is Angel Place. The city noise starts to drop away. You can hear the birds, but they aren't real. This is an art installation called Forgotten Songs, created by the artist Michael Thomas Hill back in 2009. It was part of a city project to bring some life back into these old laneways. There are 50 handmade bird cages hanging above us, and they represent the 50 species of birds that lived in this valley before we built over it. If you listen closely, the sounds actually change. During the day, you hear the songs of birds like the honey eater, and at night it switches to nocturnal species like the powerful owl. It has become one of the most Instagrammable spots in Sydney. You will always see people in here with their phones out trying to get that perfect shot of the cages against the sky. It is a beautiful bit of art, but there is something else that was lost here. We are popping out of Angel Place now and turning into Ash Street. If you ever want to feel like you have left Sydney and ended up in a back lane in Europe, this is the spot. It is a cracking little stretch for a feed. You have got Felix right here, which is a proper French brasserie. If you look through the windows, you will see the subway tiles and the chandeliers. It feels like 1920s Paris. Just next door is Ash Street Cellar. It is a great spot for some tapas and a glass of wine while you watch the world go by. And if you are after something a bit different, Mercado's just there too. They do amazing rotisserie meats and head-to-tail dining. It is funny to think that while people are sitting here enjoying some of the best food in the city, the old tank stream is still flowing just a few meters away under the buildings. This lane was actually built right on the edge of the original eastern bank. Back in the day, this would have been a muddy slope covered in ferns and wattles. Now, it is all about the coffee and the fine dining. Not a bad trade-off, I reckon. Now we are popping out onto George Street again. If you remember from the last video, this was the very first street in Australia. But for a long time, it was just a choked up mess of buses and cars. That all changed in 2019 when they finished the light rail project. They basically handed the street back to the people and turned it into a massive pedestrian plaza. It was a huge job. They had to dig up the entire road to lay down the tracks and move all the old pipes and cables that had been sitting there for over 100 years. In fact, while they were digging for the light rail, they actually found sections of the old brick drains that were part of the tank stream system. It is like every time we try to move forward in this city, we end up bumping into the ghost of that old creek. Remember when I said something else was also lost here in Angel Place? Well, when they dug the foundations around here, archaeologists hit a proper gold mine of history. Deep in the mud, they found hundreds of ancient stone tools, scrapers and cutting flakes made from silkrete and chert, some of them thousands of years old. It really puts things into perspective, doesn't it? Long before the convicts and the stone bridges, the Gadigal people were sitting right here by the fresh water, crafting their tools. We think we are the first ones to turn this valley into a busy hub, but we are just the latest ones to set up shop by the water. Now, we have made it to the GPO in Martin Place. This is probably the most impressive building in the whole city. It was designed by a bloke named James Barnett, who was the colonial architect back in the late 1800s. Barnett wanted this to be the centre of the universe for Sydney. It was the spot where every letter and telegram in the colony arrived. But here is the real secret. The tank stream flows directly under this building. If you want to see it for yourself, you can actually book a heritage tour of the GPO. And even better, there is a section of the tank stream sitting right on display in the underground area of the hotel. It is completely free to go down and have a squiz. I will include a link in the description on how you can book a spot. It is a bit of a contrast, isn't it? Above ground, you have got all this gold leaf and Italian-style sandstone, but just a few meters below in the basement, you can see the dark, damp stones of the old creek still doing its thing. It is the perfect spot to see how Sydney built its grandest monuments right on top of its humble beginnings. And, oh, for the Matrix fans, if you do the tour, you can see the stairs from the famous Deja Vu scene. But we have the fountain just there. This is exactly where they filmed the scene with the woman in the red dress. It is one of the most iconic spots in sci-fi history. And it is sitting right here in the heart of Sydney. Pitt Street was named after the Prime Minister of England at the time, William Pitt. William Pitt was only 24 years old when he took over as Prime Minister. Think about that for a second. He was just a young bloke in his 20s, sitting in a grand office in London, making the call to send thousands of people halfway across the globe to a place he had never seen. His government officially signed off on the plan in 1786, and the first fleet sailed just a year later. It is wild to think that the whole future of Sydney and this very street now named after him started with a decision made by someone that young. If you haven't pushed the like button yet, can you do it now? If you have made it this far, you are either fast asleep or you are enjoying it enough to stick around. Either way, it really helps me out. So, thanks for that. Coming up at the road crossing is King Street. The mall ahead was the catchment area for the tank stream. but just on King Street, about where the car park entrance is, was a small waterfall. That little drop in the rock was where the tank stream officially started its journey as a creek. It must have been a beautiful spot. A hidden oasis in a thick wood of blackbutt and blue gums. Now, it is just part of the city grid. It is a bit of a contrast, isn't it? Standing here in one of the busiest hubs in the world, knowing that under your boots is the ghost of a waterfall. We have finally made it to the Pitt Street Mall. It is a bit hard to imagine, but while everyone is busy window shopping, we are actually standing right where the whole story began. Back in 1788, this wasn't a paved mall. It was a marshy soak, a swamp that collected all the rain from the high ground near Hyde Park. The water would filter through the reeds right here before trickling down the hill toward the harbour. You used to be able to see exactly where the water flowed. There were these beautiful blue glass markers set into the pavement, tracing the path of the hidden creek. They were an art piece called Into the Head of the Cove, but they were pulled up a few years back in 2019. Even though those markers are gone, the ghost of the stream is still here. You can feel it in the dip of the ground and the way the mole stays so open and bright. The city has strict laws about sunlight here, partly to keep the mall feeling good, but also to protect the heritage of the old stream still flowing underneath the shops. It is the perfect place to end our walk. The very spot where a simple swamp decided the fate of a whole continent. Thanks, guys. If you made it this far, I have many more videos to come, but if you guys have any ideas for future walks, I would love to hear them. If you haven't subscribed yet, please join us. And if you would like to buy me a coffee, there is a link in the description for that as well. If you have any stories to add to this, I would love to hear those too. I actually have an idea to voice your thoughts in a future video. Maybe about the environmental problems the early settlers left us, or just anything in general. But until next time, see ya.